Who said we needed to look for ornaments for our Christmas trees? So let's see what we can do. How cute is that? Aww. We got little boys and little girls that can just grace their branches with their dancing steps. You want to take the teddy bears?
Bears.
Hi, I'm Lynn Ross and welcome to Up the Creek, sponsored by Nanticoke Valley Historical Society. This is the third in a series of videos on pursuits from the arts of the past. The only criteria being is that the artistic pursuit needs to be vintage to antique or 50 to over 100 years old. Today we are lucky to have Sandy Rozek with us, a founding member of the Historical Society, and she's going to talk to us about Paper Doll Garland. All right.
Okay, I'm going to talk about paper in general. Yes, I'm Sandy Rozek, and we'll go back further than my beginnings with paper, because when we teach kids, we teach them for detail. They have to put the details in. You know, when you draw a picture, put in their eyes, their nose, their mouth. Now we have the history of the silhouette. The silhouette was popular, and there were people that went to fairs and free cut silhouettes and portraits, and these were almost always profiles. We all have had children who have been put down on a piece of big newsprint and taken home a silhouette for a Christmas gift for mom or dad. These are my 4 children before the 5th one was born, and this was a fundraiser for the Historical Society in the 70s. So then we move from there to teaching people to just look, close your eyes and don't look at the details. Now let's look at the outline and the general shape. And it's really amazing what you can see in just little tiny clips and cuts. You can see a whole curl of hair just with a little tiny point. And paper dolls were not with clothes initially. They were made as teaching moral lessons. And the first published paper doll was about 1810. There was a little Fanny, and these were not done for fun. They were done for moral lessons to teach virtues. Fanny did then have clothing. The original ones had no clothing. They were made as jumping jacks, various kinds of things, but they were passed around in the elite circles of adulthood. Now we have children given paper dolls with outfits. Fanny showed up with a beautiful long dress with a flower in her hand. And then she got rowdy and started doing things she shouldn't do. And she showed up in bare feet and rags. And then toward the end, it was a book. It was all described. She showed up again with her white dress. And here's a picture of her. Oh, I don't have that one. A picture of her holding a book because she had learned virtue by reading books. Then there was little Henry. Same thing with him. With contrast to little Fanny, she was vain and sulky and learned to be modest and obedient. Little Henry succeeded to escape and find a fortune, first as a drummer, then a sailor, because this is all a storybook. And the clothing he wore depicted the stage of life he was in. And he ultimately set off to fight the French and became rich and finally reunited with his parents. So those were early paper dolls that had clothing. Today, we're going to talk about a silhouette that we can make. It's always more powerful to have more than one on your team, right? So when they started making chains of paper dolls, they had to have patterns, But originally, I don't think they had patterns. They just took the scissors and they cut. And that was the way I started. But you have to fold your paper. First of all, when I started this, in the article about the history of making paper chains, there was a book called Winter Nights Entertainment, published in 1922. I came across this book. I didn't know until I read the article that this was the book that got me into the world of paper, folding, cutting. Everything I do involves paper. And it was written in 1822, and I started using it in 1952. And since then, I've been cutting, folding, and doing anything you can do with paper, because paper is cheap. So this is a 12-inch piece of paper, and I made a lot of patterns because I've been making sure it would fit. You can take it and cut it wherever you want to make a strip. And a 12-inch, I've got a lot of patterns, which I'll show you afterwards.
Love that.
A 12 by 9-inch piece of paper is in a doodle pad. This paper is thin because if you're getting children to do it, you want them to be able to cut it. And so we're going to do the most basic. We tried to do a long, long one that had 16 things in it. It slid all around. They weren't accurate. They were all a little different. They were raggedy because the scissors weren't sharp enough. So I backed down and decided we're going to do 4s with 12 inches. Or we're going to do patterns that fit 6s for, I've got 6s for 12 inches too. We'll fold them in thirds for that. This is half of a 9 by 12 sheet of doodle pad. Cheapest thing you can find, but nice and thin and easy to cut. Okay, so we just fold this in half. And then fold it in half again, but maybe leave a little edge that you can trim afterward because as you fold, it moves a little bit. And then fold it in half again, right to the folded edge. Make them nice and tight because if you're going to reverse them, they'll reverse more easily if they're very well creased. Then you go take off the one that isn't quite at the fold and trim it so they'll be accurate. Okay, so they're now folded nice and tight, and I'm going to show you the most basic so that it can stand. Make sure the bottom is good and straight. And we're going to start by making a girl with a skirt, keeping the folded edges with a piece that connects. We're going to cut, and then we're going to cut a torso, and we're going to cut hands. Now we're going to cut hands. Now if this is a girl, we're going to give her a little curl or whatever you want, and the top of her head. Now when we open her up, there are 4 of her. The most simple, we don't need a pattern because she's easy. She has a straight bottom so she can stand. I will later show you one that I had the boy, but I had to put a base on it and I had to reinforce the bottoms if you want them to stand. Otherwise, you need to put them on something, which is why we have a dark background. And they're usually white on a dark background, or they advertise doing them in newsprint. Now this girl, if we want half of them to be boys instead of girls, well, they could be alternate. Let me see. All right, let's just do and see what comes out. We take this basic girl and we are going to cut a pair of pants for her, and we're going to round out her head. She could have a little boy long hair too. You never know. They're wearing their hair very long these days. Now we have a boy and a girl set playing together. Okay?
So cool.
This time we're going to review the fold for thirds so that you can do 6 in a row instead of 4. The reason I've been doing 4 lately is because I was doing it for the purpose of teaching little children, and I didn't want them to have too thick a thing to do. To fold a thing in thirds, you fold your paper. This is an 18-inch. Fold it in thirds. And of course, it's never exactly accurate, but you have to make one edge right to the fold and the straight edge, which means that I have to trim this one, and that's the reason that mine didn't fit on before. Now we cut this in half. Fold this in half after we've done the original thirds. You know how to do thirds. Okay? Now we've got that in thirds. Now we're going to take the thirds and put it in half. This is the size. Remember, we're doing a front-on view. And a front-on view means we're only going to use a half pattern. Okay? So, we're going to fold that in half. And my pattern, because I did my thirds a little off and had to trim them, isn't quite going to fit. So I'm going to make, he's too big. All right, we're going to make him smaller. We're just going to make him, maybe we'll just draw him. How about that? His foot is over here. Let's see, I'm doing it upside down. I don't think I can do that. His foot is here. Connect him at the toe. His heel. The edge of his pants. The top of his pants. His ankle, his pantaloons, his body. He's holding hands with somebody. He's coming up here, and he's going to have a head that I made too big because remember it's got to be a half a head. And now we will cut him. Here is the way I've drawn this without a pattern. And now we have 3 little boys. 6 little boys. Because we cut in thirds. Okay, that takes care of him. Now, you notice because these are folded instead of accordion folded that half of them fold out, half of them fold in. We made good sharp folds so that we could change them very easily. So she goes that way, and she goes that way. Now they're all going the same way. Okay, same thing with this one. If we want them to be the other way, we can change whichever one we want to change. Sometimes you have to make it tighter so you can switch it, but switching it around is easy if you've got nice, strong folds. Nice creases. So they can go that way, or they can go that way. And the girls can be made into boys very easily because you change their skirts into pants. And you can make short skirts. Let's make some short skirts. It may not work because I've got them folded the wrong way, but we want to make short skirts. We can come up here and let's change the legs and do that. I don't know what will happen to the middle of this because these are two kinds. Okay, we have short skirts and shorts. And then sometimes if you want, I've done some every other one where you have to fold them so that you're cutting every other one instead of all of them. But this is so that you can use your creative juices and send your examples of additions that you make, because everybody will come up with very exciting variations. All right, I'm going to do the very simplest, tiniest little row of people and make it more interesting by doing something very easy. I'm going to do a very short little 12-inch. My favorite way of cutting edges is to fold them and cut them close. All right, I'm going to fold in half. I'm going to use the whole 12 inches or I will run out. Go all the way over, fold in half again, and then I'm going to fold in half again. Now that is the size I'm going to have, so I have to fold one more half. And this, you don't want a lot of detail because it's very, very small. Okay, so we will start with a girl with a skirt, and the body, and hands. Very simple hands. I messed up her hair because she's so small and so thick. So we just fix it. And that's what's good about not tracing them. You can just fix them later. Then I'm going to open it up and fold it in half and in half. And I'm only going to change two of them. They're going to be in the middle. They're not going to be every other one. Depends on where you put them. I'm going to change this one to a boy. Now we have, well, we're supposed to have two boys and, yeah, we have a girl, two boys, two girls, two boys, and a girl. Because I didn't do every other one. So you need to just figure out where you need to refold them, to redo them. And these are very boring girls. I want to get rid of the scraps. And we're going to take small colored paper and add some aprons and some hats of different colors to make them look more interesting. Also, if we fold them back together, we can give them a smiley face. So these have a smiley face on them. They have a little smile because I cut it out of the corner, out of the edge, the folding edge. All right. Now we're going to talk about how we can embellish our plain little silhouette Janes and paper dolls. And once we've made a nice string of 6 on an 18-inch piece, we have 3 little boys and 3 girls. If we want to dress them and put some color on them, you have to make clothes that fit over your people. So you make patterns that go on that size doll, and I have here 3 little dresses. Okay, and if I'm correct, they should fit over these 3 little girls. Okay, and I'm going to lay this down. We also made some little suits, and so there are 3 little suits. Three little suits can go on these little boys. And you can put a couple dots and you have a nice 3-dimensional
All right.
Here are some examples of patterns that could be used for garlands. Now that you know the basics of how long to make your paper, how high to make it, how to make your patterns fit, just remember whatever you make is half the width that you want. So some of those that had the clothes were very thin because they were in the same length paper, and they had to have tall skinny dresses because they were tall skinny girls. Here's a teddy bear, here's an angel. Most of these things have been on half frontal views. This is a train that is not on a half frontal view, so it reverses every time. So I made a whole train. Here is a frontal view car. Here's a frontal view boat, and there are 6 of these. And here is a group of airplanes. There are 6 of these. You can get them all in there. Take the train off and move these up. Okay, now we're going to take a beach vacation, and along the shore we have all kinds of little houses that people could live in. Here's a little shop along the boardwalk. Here is a little beach hut that we can stay in for that week on vacation. Here is another dwelling it might be the one we left to go on vacation. I want to talk about families because this is a family activity. And of course, we can adjust horizontal sizes and shapes. We cannot adjust vertical in this craft. But we do have a lot of people who cut their figures apart. And if you get their hands to line up and you cut them apart, here we have mothers and fathers holding the hands of boys and girls, and they're all taped together at the hands. Just a suggestion for your new creation. Okay, I hope that you've been motivated to use your own creative minds to come up with new ideas and ways that you can expand this new skill, and practice, practice, practice. You're going to be amazed at how many new ideas you will come up with.
You can also follow us on Facebook, Nanticoke Valley Historical Society. Stay tuned for the next adventure in our series. Thanks so much. Have a good day.